Okay. Okay, let's start. So remember last time I introduced you to Code Wars? Maybe that was too big of a jump. I'm gonna introduce you to an easier jump first, and let's start with that. Can you go to edabit.com? edabit.com. Yeah. You can register with your BCIT email if you don't want to use your email, but register in so that we can go through some challenges together. Oops. I already registered with my BCIT email. And these challenges are much easier. So we'll start with those. And let's see if we can get to all the way to Code Wars. Or maybe we're killing the server right now. Who knows? We are all killing the servers at the moment. So this is similar. It's just simple challenges. And once you are signed in, make sure you verify your email later on. You don't have to do it now, but make sure you do it later on. But there's a place called challenges. Go to the challenges part. And then just go to the first one, how Edabit works. And go into it. It's the same idea. They'll have instructions. And then when you're ready, go to code and code it out. And then you can test. And if it's if you did it properly, then it's good. If you didn't, then it's bad. So again, the idea is understand the instruction. Then if you don't know how to do a solution, understand the solution. But this is much easier, so you should be able to do the solutions no problem. At least in the beginning anyway. So the first one reads, this is an introduction to how challenges on Edabit work. In the code tab, you'll see a starter function that looks like this. All you have to do is type return hello edabit.com between the curly braces and click the check button. If everything went according to plan, your button will turn red and say submit final. Click it and see what happens. Don't forget to return the result. If you get stuck on the challenge, find help in the resources tab. If you're really stuck, unlock solutions in the solutions tab. So go to the code part. When you're ready, go to the code part, and it goes function hello. All you do is type. What does the instruction say? What do you type? Hello edabit.com. And then we press check. Okay, I'm gonna purposely do it wrong. This is what it looks like when you do it wrong. And you press check, it'll check for you. And because I did it wrong, it'll tell me that expected that and you wrote that instead, right? But if you did it right and you press check, then it will give you pass, which is good. I hear someone already have some sounds going in. Yeah. And then continue, blah, blah, blah. Because I already have it, so I don't have to submit it. If you complete it, it will tell you that it's completed. Okay, let's do this next one together. Return the sum of two numbers. And then afterwards, I want you to try some on your own. Again, if you don't know what to do, you can always go to resources. But return the sum of two numbers. Let's go through the instructions together. Create a function that takes two numbers as arguments and return their sum. So 3 is the first argument, 2 is the second one, I should get 5. -3, -6, I should get -9. 7 and 3, I should get 10. Don't forget to return the results. All tests contain valid numbers. If you get stuck on a challenge, blah, 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 blah. So let's go to code. So these are the arguments, A and B, right? So how do I get the sum of something?
A plus B divided by 2. Wait. No, that's the
You're thinking about average. Average.
yeah.
So it would be, for example, if you want to do it in a more formulatic way, you can make a variable and go var sum equals to A plus B. And then you have to return something. What should I return? Return A? Return B? Return sum. Let's check. So all went through, submit final, see if it goes through properly when I submit the final. Okay, so alright. You can keep going. Next challenge, try some of yourself. Okay, this will help you build some good knowledge here and there. Okay. I'll give you around 10 minutes to try some of yourself. Yeah? Oh, okay. Yeah. If you don't want to do it randomly, you can just go back to challenges and go to the next one. Yeah. If you feel like very easy is too easy for you, you can always go to the next difficulty. So objective is understand the instructions. If you get stuck, check the resources. And if the resource doesn't help, then look at the solution. And see if you can understand the solution. It's good. This will help you build your logic up. It may not feel like it's practical right now because why do I get the sum? What's the point? But it will help for a few seconds. Sorry. Okay, if you get stuck, look at the resources. They provide resources to help how you can approach such topics. And once you get through a few on your own, it becomes easier to understand what you're supposed to do. And if you are afraid to type, don't be afraid to type anything out. The worst you'll do is you press check and you have a whole bunch of X's. So you want to get out the habit of not being afraid of type. So if you press check and it fails, look at what they're looking for and what you're returning, and you can go from there. Okay, another minute or so, and then we're gonna start today. We'll do some every week. Go through some harder ones. Okay, I'm gonna ask you to stop over there. You can do a lot on your own. There's 750 in total. If you complete them all, then it'll be really nice. But we'll do some every week together. Give them time to do some on your own. So again, this helps build up your, well, first of all, it helps you be more comfortable with the script itself. And it does help you build up your logic and all the common problems. And it does help you build up some interview questions if it ever comes up. And when you're ready to transition from that to Cold Wars, that'll be a very happy day. Okay, so we're gonna revisit our last lab later to go back to the password checker. Before that, today we're gonna introduce some new topics, and we're gonna use that to revisit our password detecting item. So we're transitioning from just using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript to build more like a component-based application. In your case, it'll be mostly single-page component-based application. So let's start with seeing how we build this component again. just like last time. But the difference between this time and last time is that we're going to make our state variable observable, and I'll explain what that means. Or oops, bad naming convention. Let's do app.js. Because app is our component, in this case anyway. We'll have a CSS as well. So from this point forward, every time you build something, you should think about them in components, like presented in class. What is the UI? What are the states? Meaning, what part of the UI changes? And finally, what is the function that changes the state? And how it's connected to the UI's interaction. When you have all three of those answered, and you connect them properly, then you have an application. So let's make it simple for now. All we're going to do is we're going to build menus left, right, up, and down. Okay, we'll start with the left menu over there. That's our component, our menu component. Someone, some company hired you and you're in charge of the menu component, the menu module. So all they do is, usually in a company, all they do is they go, okay, we have a component that you're supposed to build. And here's the div for your component. And you figure everything else yourself inside that component. So before we start, let's grasp what we're trying to do at the moment. We were in charge of a simple component. The menu looks like this, and it will have items, right? And the only thing that it does is that, when this is clicked on, it will collapse, it will go back in, and once it goes back in, there's another button where a hamburger button or whatnot that you can click on and it comes back out. But it doesn't just go back in. It fades back in and fades back out. All right. That's from the graphic design team or the UI UX design team. Like, this is what we want to achieve. And you're in charge of the component. So we got to figure out the UI. We got to figure out the state. And then we got to connect the state and then figure out the function that changes the state and then connect them all together in one go. Well, let's figure out the easiest part, which is the UI. The UI is a menu that looks like this. All right. So what is there? There's a div, What else is there? There's some links, probably. We'll fake out the links for now. And there is something that you can click on. It could be a button, it could be whatever, right? You can use anything. So that's my UI. So let's just build them out right now. Right, so the first part is the UI. We'll build out the UI. Menu for the components. So let's actually, if you can say that this is the div itself, this is the menu div itself, or you can build another div on top of it if you want to. But let's just say that's the div itself. And then we have some links inside. So we're going to build some fake links. href equals to, I don't know what it would be, but it doesn't matter, right? Menu item 1. And you just build out like a few. 2, 3. And then we know we have a button that's like an X or whatever. That's the UI. Well, without the CSS, that's the UI. So let's check our UI and make sure that it looks something similar. And now we have to stylize it so that our UI looks nice and neat. So we'll stylize it. We'll just do a quick style. We won't, unless you can make it look as pretty as you want for all it matters. But I'm just gonna do some quick styling with some padding and some background color. And gonna make it mobile friendly by maybe making it a flex display and have it as a flex direction column. So that later on, if I want to transfer these styles to a mobile app, it will work because it's using similar mobile app styles, which you'll learn next year. I mean, not next year, next term. So get used to using flex displays. Those are all going to be very useful. I'm gonna ID this button as close or something, so that I can put the button on the top right side. How do I put the button on the top right side? Does anyone know?
0, right, 0.
Is this gonna work? Let's try it. Top 0, right 0.
So,
Good? Good? Position what?
absolutely.
Is this gonna work? It's over there. What's wrong with it?
Where do you want it to go?
Inside the menu, top right of the menu.
Oh, the menu div itself has to be positioned.
The menu itself has to be positioned, not static at least. Yeah. Well, it's gonna be fixed or absolute later on, right? But let's just do relative just to see that it goes through. Right now it's on the top right, but it's gonna be fixed. Well, I think it's gonna be fixed or static or not static, fixed or sticky or absolute, depending on how you want your menu to be. Okay, so let's make it fixed instead of relative. And we'll have our left 0 and top 0 as well. And we'll put some margin for each menu item as well. Might as well. Menu A. So that kind of away from each other. So if you don't know that you can stylize just by the tag, you can do that. This is saying the A tag, or you can do div tag, or you can do just the first A tag if you want. For example, like maybe I want the first one to have more margin top, right? You can go, you can do something like, does anyone know how to do just the first A tag? First child. Margin top 50 pixels. So just the first one will have a margin top. Some neat CSS stuff you can do. So that's the UI. All we're doing is the UI. This is what the UI is going to look like at the moment. What else is there needed? We have two things that's going to happen in the menu. One is it's going to slide all the way in. The other is it's going to fade out while it slides all the way in. So what other things should I have here as a preparation in the UI? We have the left, which is for the sliding later on. But how about the fading? What kind of CSS attribute do I need so that it fades out? Opacity. And what should it be in the beginning? 1? 1. Because you want to see in the beginning. Okay, so this is the UI. That's the first part. Our component first part is the UI. What's the second part of the component? Oh, we forget already. What's the second part of a component? The state, the initial state and the variables. Right. So what changes in the UI when we do something? Because that's the item that we have to connect our states with, right? What actually changes in the UI when we press X?
Oh, then you want the whole menu to hide it.
Yeah, so what changes?
Other positions.
Okay, which position
Oh,
change?
could be margin right.
It could be margin right, yeah, that's possible.
Or the left.
Or the left.
Increase.
Okay, so the left. What else changes? The opacity. So that's our states. There's two things that's going to change throughout my interaction. One is the left, one is the opacity. All right. So let's build those variables. The var left, or in case left is taken, I'll add a m in the beginning. You don't have to add m. You can add any letters you want in the beginning. Is equal to 0. That's the initial one, right? 0. And opacity is equal to 1. In case opacity is taken, I'm going to use mop, if you don't mind. Mop. My opacity. Mop. You can use your own variable names. Again, that's if you have something that you're comfortable with, you should do that. And just for the sake of getting comfortable with the script, I do encourage you to use your own variable names so that you're actively thinking what you're connecting and what you're not. So these are my state. Now we have the functions in which the state changes. Let's just build them out for now. What's one of the function? What should we name on the function? Close. Function close. I like that. And what happens in function close? Let's call it close menu to be more accurate, because we'll be closing multiple things at the same time. What should happen in close menu? We got to change the states, right? So what should we change the state to? Let's start with opacity. What should we change the opacity to? Okay, so let's write that. How do we do a change? Mob equals to 0. That's a change right there. Every time you have an equal, you're changing it, right? And what about the left? What should we change it to? Well, we'll figure it out later on, but let's say negative 100 for now. Whatever it may be. So these are my states. These are my functions. Changes state. Now we gotta connect them, right? Well, I'll show you how to connect this later, but let's do the easier connection. Let's connect the function. Which part of my UI is this function connected to? The baton. All right. The baton. Like that. So what's the action that it's connected to? On click. So on click equals to close menu. So I'm gonna introduce you. You know, last week we do all the UI changes within the function itself, and that is messy, right? It becomes super messy in general. And I'm gonna introduce you to how components are built in the modern era. How Facebook and Google built their frameworks, and how just by changing the state variable itself changes the entire UI, how they all work. And we'll be introduced to this a lot. So it's something called proxy. Have you learned proxy in WebDev at all? So proxy is a replacement for something called observable before. It means that the program itself is connected. The whole window itself is connected to an item that you, a variable that you scripted out. And every time it changes, it will do a function. That's what it does. Like it's observing it. Oh, look, it's the value changed from 0 to something else. So it does something in the background because of that. That's what a proxy is. So let's see how it all works. You use the word proxy itself. So var p equals to new proxy. And in here, it tells you there's two things you can use. The proxy handler and a target object. Okay, we'll go over these little by little. But basically, it asks for two things. Number one, proxy, number one is 2 arguments. First argument is the item, the variable to observe. And the second one is function on what to do. Okay, that's really hard to see, but write your own note. All right, it asks for two things inside. Number one, what do I want to look at? And number two, what to do once I looked at it. So we're going to build a function to say what to do once we see that the left changes and that the OP changes. Because this is where it changed, right? Okay, so before we do that, we gotta combine these two together into one variable. Because we can't just put two items in here, right? Because it's only asking for one variable to observe. If you put two items in here, well, that's not possible. And this is why I asked you in class, were you introduced to object? Because an object is taking multiple variables and packaging it into one variable. The idea is very simple. When we're sending information to people, we're not sending one information. We're sending a lot of information. They're just all packaged together in one information. It's like either you're writing a letter, but then you're writing a letter and you put in other things inside, aside from the paper itself. You put in a paper, you put in some keys, you put in some candies, but you package them into one letter. That's what an object essentially is used for. Instead of writing two variables for this, I'm going to package them together into one object. So the state will look something like this. Var, let's call it package just for now, because that's what it is. It's equal to something like that. That's an object, right? The beginning of an object. And I'm going to package the left in here, and I'm going to package the opacity in here as well, so that I don't need these down here anymore. And if I want to change them, instead of calling the individual variable, you would use the package and access the variable mop, and use the package and access the variable mleft. So that's the point of an object, is to package a lot of variables together. And right now, you may, you go, okay, why would I do that when I can just do this, right? In the future, you're gonna learn that aside from building a layout out and using variables in the layout, you'll be sending information to other people's computers. So my layout has interactions in which it sends information to other people's computers. And in order to send multiple information, such as your username, your avatar, the message that you type for your friend, send all three of these together. Well, how would you do that? By packaging all the information together into one variable and send that over. So that's the big usage of objects. In this case, now that we have them packed together, we can say, I want you to observe everything, all the variables inside this object. And now all we're missing is the second part, which is, okay, when they change, what do you do? Right. When they change, what the heck do you do? So let's build a function to tell them what to do. Function to do on change. You can name it whatever you want. Let's just call it package change then. Pack change for package change. Well, actually, to do the handler part properly, these are the rule set. You won't type function packet change. You'll go var pack change is equal to multiple functions. You're gonna pack multiple functions in one object. So again, objects are used to pack information together. Because that's what they're asking to do in here. These are just logistics. It's gonna show you. So the first function I want to pack in here is called a set function. It has to be called set. This is how proxy handles it. They're looking for something called set, and it's a function. And there are 3 arguments in the function. One is what's being observed. Second is the name of the property. And the third is the new value or the old value. Now, this is the first time I'm introduced to this. So, it's okay to be slightly confused on this whole item over here. The only thing you have to know is that when I change this will execute. The word set will execute. So whenever I change the value of left, this will execute. And it will ask what's going on over here. So it goes, what do you want when you change it? Then we do the following. If prop is equal to, this is saying, this prop here is saying which key is being changed right now. Right? So if it's equal to m left, then do something to the UI. If prop is equal to, what's the other thing? Mop, right? Over here. Then do something to the UI. Change UI's opacity. Change UI's left. Here, let me write some. Observe that changes the state. Before we go on, let's clarify some items over here so that we're not just like writing and lost on what's going on here. This is saying that whenever the key m left, you see the same key, right? Whenever the key m left is changed, this is the comparison, because whenever it's changed, it'll give me the property that was changed. So if I do, for example, if I do this script over here, they will call onto this function. If I do this script, they'll call onto this function. It'll give me the object, which is the package itself. It'll give me the property that was changed, which is the second part, m left, the characters, and will give me the value, which is -100. Okay, so when I change this, it will pass on what was changed. This object was changed. Which part of the object was changed? This part of the object. This part of the object was changed. What is the new value? -100. Okay, so that's what's happening. So let's go over it again. When I type this, because it's being observed, someone's looking at it in the background. Just pretend there's a person here. There's like a police here, staring at this package at all time in the background. And then someone goes, okay, let's change something in the package. So the police goes, Okay, I'm gonna write down what was changed. Well, what was changed? The package was changed. What was changed inside the package? So he writes down, oh, mleft inside the package was changed. What did they change it to? -100. Right? So whenever, doesn't matter who, doesn't matter which function, whenever someone changes something in the package, this police over here will go, okay, something was changed, and I'm gonna report to you, and this is what this set does. I'm gonna report to you what was changed. The package, the property that was changed, and what actually was changed inside. Right? This is how they do all of this. You can always console log out all three items. Console.log, object, comma, property, comma, value. And finally, we're going to put the reference over here, which is pack change. Actually, I screwed up a bit. This should be below the pack change. So put it below, because we didn't make it yet and we're trying to use it. Put it below. So I'm going to reiterate this again. What's a proxy? It's an observer. It checks for changes. If we were going back to the previous comparison, you can think of it as someone policing these packages. So this is the police that's policing the packages, and this over here is giving the command to the police on what to do when you do see something. Right? So we're saying var p equals new proxy. That's the same as saying var p is making a new police. The police is going to observe this package, and he's going to do this whenever they see something change in the package. You set someone's eyes on there to that package. And what do? Whenever they see someone changing the package, they're going to log out, they're going to write down which package was changed, which item in the package was changed, and what was it changed to. Okay, let's test this out. Let's see if it actually logs out when I press on X. Right. Go to console, and we're going to press on X. No. You gotta see why not now. The reason it's not logging out is because this package over here in close menu should be p.mob and p.mleft. I like the instant why. It's good. I was seeing if anyone else. I was about to explain it, and then it was like, why? So, after building the packages and putting it to this proxy, to this police, the var p over here is the police package. Meaning that, okay, so this package is on its own, but it's now all the information inside is transferred to this variable over here. So the information that the police is holding, I see you're saying police, I feel like that's going to come back and bite you. If someone asks in an interview, what's a proxy? It's a police. But now the police is the one that's looking, like is holding the information for the package. In a more programmatic way, you transfer the information over so that you can observe the change through the reference itself. And that's the only way they can observe it. They can't just go, okay, I'm gonna add something new to this variable. That's why we build a new variable to do the observation. Because this variable, this reference itself, doesn't have the script to observe it. What this does is it takes this object over here and implement the script and pass it back as a new variable. Okay, so the idea, so that's it's hard. I don't know how else I can explain it, but I'll think of a better slide or whatnot. But the idea is we take the package. This is what the police is supposed to look at, and store it in a new variable because JavaScript has to write the script, the observation script inside the variable, and it cannot do that in here. So that's why we go var p equals to it, because this is the new observed package. You know what? Let's write that new observed package. Instead of saying p, I'm going to write new observed package. New observed package. So the original package isn't observed because it doesn't have the script inside to observe it. The new one has. I'm trying to think of how we can relate this back to the police thing. It's like putting a bug into the package, right? So you want to observe that package. Let's say you put a GoPro into the package or something like that. Right? You hide a GoPro in the package. That's what this is kind of like. So when you give the package to the police and tell them what to do, they have to put a GoPro to the package so they can see it all the time. And they cannot directly do this inside the original variable. So they make a new variable to put the GoPro in. So now this is the item. This is the package that has the exact same thing, but it has the GoPro inside as well. I don't know if that makes sense or not. Yeah. That's right. It's observing it. So now, whenever we press X, you notice the console log comes out. But why is there two console logs? Because we only have one. Why is there two console logs? Huh? Two properties were changed in the package. Which two? Mop and left, right? So the first change, the second change. So the police goes, oh, something's changed. Strip 13. So the police goes, let's do this. And then strip 14, oh, something's changed. And then the police goes, let's do this, which is console log. Which is why we have this if statement, and we can say only if the left changes will we do the following. Only if the mop changes will we do the following, like, haha, you know. Because then that way we can have we can differentiate what to do when each individual item changes. Does this part make sense over here? With the conditions here, we can differentiate what to do when individual item changes. That's the whole point of this if statement over here. So if the change is left, then we console log everything. But if the change is mop, then we console log the word haha. I mean, like, okay, don't get confused why I console log haha. Like that makes no sense. I'm just trying to show you that you can do different things when you change different things by using the if statement. But what do we want to do over here, right? We want to change the UI for the left. So what do we type here instead of console log? We go which UI? The menu, right? So let's change the menu. How do we change the menus left? Document dot query selector. But it seems like we're going to use this a lot, right? So let's make a variable for that. Var just in case menu is taken.
You did a variable inside the set.
It doesn't matter where you do it. You can do it outside too. You can do it like right here if you want. No, let's do it properly. Let's do it here. Var menu equals to documents dot query selector menu. And again, I have two M's because just in case menu is taken already. Then we go menu dot, what am I changing? Style. Which style am I changing? M left? Just left. Is equal to, what is it equal to? Value plus pixel. That, because it's negative 100 now, but later on we're going to have an open menu. Right? We're going to have an open menu. And it's going to be something else. But this will observe the change, and whatever value that it's changed into, that will become the new change. So this is connecting the state variable with the UI right here. This is the UI, and this is the state variable that I'm connecting it with. How about opacity? Menu dot style dot opacity is equal to value. So everything from here downward is to make and connect the UI with the state. This is the modern way to connect UI with the state, using an observable variable. Meaning, whenever the variable changes, then it will do this automatically. Right? That clears out a lot of messiness. Because remember last time in the past, what did we do? We have to do the UI change in the function itself as well, right? And eventually, it becomes super messy. But if all the UI changes are connected in just this way, every function we do, all we have to do is change the variable, and it automatically changes. And we can test case this with another button over here. Let's just call it open. Actually, before we even test case that, let's test if it works. I didn't even test if it works. Right. Right. And if you can transition it to make it look nice, if you want to. Transition left for 0.5 seconds and opacity for 0.5 seconds. So really cool. So before I go and do open, let me just again write down the comments over here. Below is to connect observable state variables to the UI. It's just the word transition and left and opacity. So open menu, what do you do? Why don't you try yourself? All you have to do is change two variables and connect it to a UI interaction. If you open menu yourself, no. This is these are all connecting the UI with the variable. When you make an object, the variables you make inside the object. Yeah. Well, that one is when you make individual variables. So in an object, when you select all of them, only for the items that are class. So if you want to add more, all right. It's not defined, right? So it's not here. You observe it.
No, I didn't touch anything in the package. I just copied it.
Yes. So you don't have a head line, which is this the comma. So within the comma, within the so it's asking what you're saying, right? What to look at and what to do, which is your pattern. Now, if you understood this whole process, make an input where you can change the value of the where when make an input and a function connected to the input where you can change the opacity of your menu. So you can make an input and connect a function to the input so that every time you key up on the input, it will change the opacity to whatever you type inside. So if you type 5 inside, well, that it'll change to 5. That doesn't make sense, right? But if you type 0.5 inside, it'll be the menu will be half opacity. You know what I mean? 50% transparent. Make the input inside the menu itself, and connect a function to that input. Call it change opacity or whatever you want to call it. So we have the other one, which is function. Open menu, you haven't done it. And all we do is change the state variable so that the state changes. Goes to 1 and 0. On click is equal to open menu. So we're gonna have an input in here. Maybe you can have type equals to whatever, text, right? And what happens in here is that it's gonna connect to another function called change opacity. And whatever you type in here, the opacity menu will change to that opacity. Now, if you are more adventurous, you can make another input called background color. And to do that, you're gonna have to add a new item to the package, and you're gonna have to add a new connection to your observable connection. So that you can change that properly. Which looks So this is the idea. You build functions that changes the state. And by changing the state, you change the UI. And the reason that all changes is because you connect the UI with the variables, the state variables. And if you're really up for a more challenge, you know why we do all those things in the beginning. What if I want an input that gives me an integer and not 0.5? If I write 50, then it should translate to 0.5 through the function itself. I mean, that's simple to do. Because no one's going to type, oh, give me a percentage, and someone types 0.5, right? They will type 50% transparency, or 30% transparency. So now we do an input in the menu, and you're going to connect the input to a new function where it changes the opacity of the menu itself. So where you're going to build a function where you change the opacity, and it's going to base on what you type. So for example, if I type 0.5 input, yeah, and then huh? So every time you key up, that's the interaction you're going to connect your function. You're going to change the opacity. That's probably because you see it's still open. It's just so maybe negative 150. It's probably because it's still there. Yeah, and then That's the reality. This is so that's just you're just changing the opacity. You're not changing anything. Yeah, then your script will also because bar in top value, right?
Okay, that's great. That's good. That's really
You can do other things. You can do a key down.
I used to did driving to work. But I asked him if he said, I just think that the person was just like,
That's because
I think all submitted. It was always like, it's also been yeah, that's like on TV. So on TV now, it's like a system. On TV, it's like a system. So basically, for me, I have to write 0.5 paragraphs. Oh, you're doing the one thing.
because the input is it basically you style out your input so that it's a certain way.
Thank you.
And the reason is because once you add this, it made them because we did stylize the input. We didn't say the input should be.
Right away.
You guys, you'll figure it out.
I always try figuring out how to like when you hover over things, it does like the big bubble. I literally just have to press that.
Oh.
That arrow thing and then it'll show.
Yeah, you just click on it, and then you just go to the thing you're clicking on to see if you're actually clicking on it.
No one has ever told me that. I didn't. I thought it was like a practice thing. Like this thing.
Okay, so if you were doing the opacity, it would look something like this. Function, let's call it change, OP, and it'll be from the input, so we can get the value from the input and just change the observed state variable, right? So it'll be whatever that is equal to our input value. So let's say if it's called OP imp or something like that for opacity input, it'll be equal to document dot query selector OP imp dot value. Okay, now that we have the function, all we do is connect it to an interaction in the UI. In this case, it would be on key up, is equal to change OP. But this, what you should realize as you're doing this is that everything is more organized. What are we doing with these functions? We're just changing values. More importantly, if we need to do calculation, like what we were doing in what's that called, Edibit, we do the calculation and then change it, right? And all we don't have to worry about the UI because they are all being connected down here. We don't have to, every function, we don't have to go, oh, let's update the UI. Let's update the UI. Let's update the UI. All the updates are within this part over here because it's observing a change in the variable and it updates the UI. So let's see what happens. 0, well, okay. Well, 0.7891 2, right? I'm gonna show you one more thing over here. So you notice I had to do a query selector here, right? Technically, you don't need to. If we pass an argument over this dot value, actually I'm BSing here. In my mind, it should work because it works before a long time ago. So let's see. All right, moment of truth. 0. Okay, never mind. In my mind, it works. And that's all it matters. Okay, let me try one more. Just want to try to see if this actually works. L dot value. One more time. 0. No. Okay. Too bad. Maybe in the future somewhere. So what about background color? What about background? What if we have an input that changes background color? What if we have an input that changes background BGM? What if it changes background color? So it's a very simple process that you should get used to. Number one, do we have the UI? Do we have the UI for the background color? We do. We have the inputs and we have the actual background color for the menu. Number two, do we have a state variable connected to the background color? No, right? So let's build it. Here's our states variable. Third item is going to be, let's call it BG color. And in the beginning, it's, I have no idea what I wrote, ABC or something like that. And then we go to the function that's connecting it together, the function that the police is using to connect it together, which is down here. And what do I add over here? If prop is equal to, what am I looking for? What kind of change am I looking for? BG color. The property that I'm looking for the change is called BG color, right? BG color. That's the property I'm looking for. If it's BG color that was changed, then I will have to do something to UI. What will I do to the menu UI? The style dot background color. And what is it equal to? The value, whatever they type inside. So now it's connected. Change UI background color. Now it's connected. The variable is connected, so now we can make a function. Change background. Okay, that's too long. I'm just gonna say change BG. And all we do is we take the new observe package dot BG color equals to document dot query selector. What do I call that? BG imp. BG imp dot value. Whatever I type inside there. Okay, well, let's try it. Let's see if the background color changes. No? Why not? You have to connect the function to the interaction. Yes. On, key up, change BG. Okay. That's the last bit. Build the function, connect it to the interaction. Red. Now you notice, if I type something wrong in here, it goes back to the default, right? Because you have a default there. Now you can, so here's the part where the calculation happens, right? You can do conditions in here as well. If the value is equal to red, then change it to blue, just to fool people around. That's the best user experience. You give them surprises, right? So it's like, red, whoa, what happened? So now you can tell kids, this is an app that teaches you color, so that when they press red and stuff, like, oh, so that's red, you know. But and if we're taking in whole numbers for our opacity, then we can do some if. If the value is bigger, right. So first we're gonna do var val is equal to the value of the opacity. And we're gonna make it into an integer because the value itself is a string. We type var val equals to parse int val, which would turn it into an integer itself. Why do we have to turn an integer? Because if this number is bigger than 1, then we assume that they don't know how to do opacity in CSS. We assume that they think it's in percentages. So if the val is bigger than 1, if someone types 50, we assume that they think it's in percentages and not in decimal numbers. So if val is bigger than 1, then val is equal to val. How do I turn something into decimal numbers, percentages? If it's 50, how do I turn it into 0.5? Oh, math time, come on, people. If someone types 50, how do I turn it into 0.5? Because that's opacity. Divide it by 100. Then new observe package dot mop equals to val. Else is whatever they type in because they're doing decimals right now. Right. So this is why I asked you to do all those edit bit things, because it helps you build on thinking about these little tidbits here. All right, so now, if it was 0.5, that's okay. But if someone types like 60, then we assume that they don't know what it is. So, you know. And then you can do more checks. If it's bigger than 100, then you can alert you're stupid. No. You can make a status div as a UI, connect the text to the status div, connect the text to status, and tell them, please use a number below 100, which goes back to our password from last time. All right, we have all these functions. Now all we have to do is add on the connected states to our proxy so that whenever we change a status, all we do is change the value and the status will update itself. So this is modern scripting. This is what makes all the new frameworks work. Anytime you see something called Angular, see something called React, see something called Vue, this is the foundation in which it's built on. And everything they do inside those is based on everything you see here. They have the UI, they have the state variables, they have functions in which the state changes, and then they connect the state with the UI by making it observable.
Is it possible to add conditions to the background color?
What? Say again?
Is it possible to add conditions to the background color?
Yeah, you just add comma background color for your transition, comma background color, and the amount of second. Change OP.
Because it's 0. What we call the attribute is attribute color. Probably because color.
Okay, so let's again go through what we did today. Because this is a very important concept. It's one that will benefit you forever in development. Again, the modern web development is broken down into something called a component. Component has three things. What are the three items that it's inside component? What's the first item that's inside? The UI. What's the second item that's inside? State. And the third item that's inside is the functions. All right. So the UI, this is our UI. Everything you do in HTML, CSS is UI. You always build the UI first, so you know what can be connected to the UI. Once you have the UI, you figure out how the UI changes. Which attribute is changed throughout the UI itself? In our case, we have 3 items that changes. The left, the opacity, and the background color. That's why we create a state variable. That's why we create a state variable to connect to the UI later on. And we connect to the UI through something called a proxy. And what a proxy is a way to stare at that variable for good. Stare at it and observe a change. So how do we connect the UI, right? When we see a change in the variable, we update the UI with the change. When we see a change in the variable, mop, we update the UI with the change, a specific part of the UI. From now on, when that variable changes, it's connected to the change in the UI. When that variable changes, it's connected to that in the UI. When that variable changes, it's connected to this part of the UI. Okay. So we have state variables. It's connected to the UI. So again, we have state variables. It's connected to the UI. And this is the UI. The third thing is the functions. And what do our functions do? They change the state variables. That's all they do. By making it equal to something else, they change the state variable. And as a result, because it's connected to the UI is going to change with it. We change the state variables, change. But it's not done yet, even after the change, because what you have to do afterwards is you have to connect the functions to an interaction in the UI. Anything that you see the word on, that's an interaction. Connect this function when I interact with this input. Connect this function when I interact with this input. Connect this function when I interact with this button. Connect this function when I interact with this button. And that's how you build modern applications in the web. Because this is expandable. You can expand the functions unlimited times. You can expand the UI properties unlimited times. And it's all nice and neat. You know exactly what's going on in each one. You know what's going on here. You know what's going on here, here. You know which part is being changed, and you know how they're connected. And that's the idea of building web applications. Any questions on this? This is how we're going to build everything from now on. This will be on your exam. What? Yeah. I can tell you right now. So your job is to get comfortable with building the right state variable, connect them the right way, and changing them the right way by building the proper functions and connecting the functions to an interaction to the UI. Okay, then that's it for today. See you next week. Oh yeah, hey, one more thing before you guys leave. The midterm project is due on March 17th? Somewhere around there. Somewhere around there. During the break. Yeah, it's on your lecture D2L. Yeah. And I uploaded it last night. No. No one voted anything. decide that on my own. To get you started so you can actually work on it during the break, you should submit some kind of proposal in a document next week. The first three parts in the midterm project, there's three part. The first three parts, which is the brand, like you just write down what brand you're going to promote or whatever, and the 10 items that you're going to do. And then, yeah, let's do that first. And yes, there will be.
So you also want us to write stuff in for the core steps, you said pick a 17.
I'm debating. Should I? I'm debating. I want. Okay, here's what I really want. By next week, if you can write down your brand and the items you're promoting, and also do a rough, like it doesn't have to look neat and nice, just a rough sketch of what the environment's going to look like and what the interactive objects are going to look like inside your. That's the idea. That's the ideal situation I want to see. Because once you have that, it's everything should be easier to do. Hmm? Yeah, you can just draw it, take a picture of it. I just wanted to get you started, you know. You can be as crafty as you want.
Kids are on timeline.
Question.
Mm-hmm.
What if I'm doing a show?
Then do the. Then how?
Is that okay? So
Yeah.
for example, I'm doing a show. There are 6 characters. I'll draw them out in Illustrator, and then when